17th Wfot World Congress. And I was talking to our Russian delegate this morning and just reminiscing, this is my 5th World Congress that I've been involved with. I've waited 14 years to return to Cape Town, and trust me, it was well worth the wait. And it is therefore our responsibility to make it come true. It gives me enormous pleasure to declare open this Congress. So now I'd like to introduce the President of the South African Occupational Therapy Association, Helen Buchanan.
And her name is Paul Ndebele, and what a wonderful person that worked in Africa in particular, and she was a champion for us, travelled all over the world, continent. But the challenges that we have is huge. So you're from the UK. Where is the UK? There's Sweden, there's all over. It was so happy for me to see everybody's here. Is to look at what is working in your country. We have enough policies in the world. It's about now implementation. Okay? On your right-hand side, you will see now that it's looking at action-driven emancipation research in an inclusive society. Okay? You can do that later in your, and that is what I've developed. I've developed a model specifically for Africa per se, is that what is the relevancy that we're looking at? What is the relevancy of your profession? You must ask that every single day. The next slide, please. When we look at the puzzle here, it should be action-driven.
Within World Health Organization, there has been a lot of evolution within the rehabilitation sector in the last 2 decades, and Wfot has played a very important role in this evolution. One of the indicators of the importance of World Federation of Occupational Therapists for WHO is that Wfot is one of the professional associations which works across different program areas. It works with what we call the Global Alliance on Assistive Technology. It's a Department of Innovation, Access and Use, which is mainly focused on assistive technology. Wfot plays an important role in the program on mental health and substance abuse. Wfot plays a very important role in management of non-communicable disease, where disability rehabilitation work comes in. Wfot plays a very important role in aging and life course, and Wfot also plays a very important role in emergency program.
at medical school, I came across occupational therapy quite early in my career. And I think what was very clear as to what it was apparently supposed to be doing was to take people who had things wrong with them, broken limbs, fix them, and then get them back to work. Unfortunately, what was very clear was those who were broken were actually working in pretty much dysfunctional circumstances. And in fact, those dysfunctional circumstances were designed by the system that actually continued to perpetuate ills of society. So what was then happening was, in fact, occupational therapy was colluding with the very same system. So take people who were broken by a broken system, fix them, send them back to the same system to continue doing what they were doing. And in fact, the very same thing that they were doing, although it seemed helpful to them because they had employment, was actually increasing the inequality. And sometimes
the way in which the body works is not simply a medical question. That it has to do with the ways in which people learn how to manage themselves, the ways in which people are taught about what is acceptable in terms of how they work, how they should approach this question of doing things properly and so on. So that was a framework in this explanation of these different approaches to occupational therapy, which located occupational therapy firmly in the social, if you like, which I was very moved by, and it's remained with me.
One thing.
Okay. Well, Semaphore Home is a tool that helps occupational therapists to assess barriers in flat or house of persons with disability. Because usually there is not enough money to fix all the barriers, we classify the barriers into three basic groups. The red ones, the most severe and important ones, which are distinguished by the red line. Then yellow group, which are not so severe, and green barriers that are, let's say, not so important barriers. And the tool, which is online accessible, has several parts. First, you must introduce the person or the flat, the basic characteristics to know what we are speaking about. Then there is a subjective questionnaire, which is filled in by the person in question. That means person with disability, possibly first the severity of barriers, how important they are, and also how often the person should overcome them. And from this there is calculated with some small calculations a score, which tells you that, for instance, you get protocol like this, that there are actually 4 important barriers in the red area that should be tackled by the occupational therapist, people who want to improve the standard of living of the disabled person. Then, if you have more money, there are other 39 smaller barriers, and in the end, 19 barriers which are very small barriers at all. So, in this, when you pass all this, there you pass a decision-making process which you can use for applying for money or deciding how and in which way rebuild or fix the flat or of the house of the disabled person.
I'm getting special treatment here.
What is that?
No, I wasn't too scared.
You're lying.
and just cutting off the edges. It's not really necessary, but that way I know it's smoother for you. The only edge you need to cut off is this one, if it comes far enough, because this is quite rough. But the others you don't necessarily need to take off.
And is there like padding that comes with this? The light, we have that soft.
Ah, yeah, the black one.
Versus cream, yeah.
Then here last year, 2 weeks, there was a similar fair there. Yeah, more or less. And then here. So, if you want, what I can do is open this up here, and then it's easier to take off. But it's not really necessary. That's why I prefer to have a bigger one. It has too much hand motion. In 2 weeks, you can use this one, I would say, or today if you want to.
Hardle, and I'm a professor in Minnesota, and I teach mostly in mental health and in occupational science related classes. My research has to do with the healing properties of writing. I personally studied myself as a writer. I do poetry and journal writing, and I have a mother with schizophrenia, and my brother with brain injury died sadly about 20 years ago. So I studied myself. And I was struck by how powerful writing is for the development of the self. So I went around the country on a sabbatical in the mid-2000s, and I studied personal writers from all over the country. And I looked at the role of personal writing, such as journal writing and poetry, in the development of the self. What was interesting about that was over half of those individuals actually had a mental illness. And so the third phase, I worked with 3 grad students, and we studied personal are who we write what we become, and we become what we write. So it's very transcendent. We found also that writing was transcendent in helping us look beyond an immediate problem and learn about the problem. We also found that writing has the power to help us understand things from multiple perspectives. And writing also has the power to help us understand other cultures, which is so important in this day and age. And finally, writing is very spiritual. If you're interested in this, if you look up HAERTL, I do have published studies in the Journal of Poetry and in Arts and Health, and also in Barbara Hempel's Assessments in Mental Health, an existing edition and also an upcoming edition. Thank you for stopping and have an awesome day. Bye-bye from the WFOT in South Africa.
Sarhan, OT intern from King Saud bin Abdulaziz for Health Sciences. Our research project was about satisfaction of healthcare professional at King Abdulaziz Medical City about the role of the Saudi Commission for Healthy Specialities. So it was a cross-sectional study. Our target was physicians, rehabilitation team, and nurses. It was semi-structured questionnaires, 20 questions about the role of the Saudi commissions and how its impact on healthcare providers in Saudi Arabia. So from our results, we got that non-Saudi participants were more satisfied than the Saudi participant because they have different system and process, easier process. And also we've got 8 problems areas, which is delayment, their website was complicated, high cost of service charge, less cooperation of the staff, and the some classification of problems. So that's it, and thank you for this opportunity.
Hi, Premium OTs. My name's Lauren. I'm an occupational therapist and I live in Texas. And I just created a nonprofit. It's called Therapists Without Borders. And we will be sending volunteer OTs, PTs, and speech therapists to places in need around the world. Our first 3 programs are one's in India, one's in Kenya, and one's in Haiti. So we will be sending therapists there, and the program will be the first therapist that gets there. They basically evaluate the kid and work with the caregivers, come up with the most important thing that they need to be working on. So let's say that Johnny needs to feed himself. So they're working on that while they're there. They're training the caregivers. Half of this will be education. And then when the therapist leaves, caregiver carries over what they've been taught. Next therapist comes in, pulls up that kid's file, checks up on, okay, Johnny was supposed to be feeding himself. How's he doing now? Has he made progress? Do we need to change this? Do we need to teach something different? What they've been taught, and have a much longer term outcome with progress. And so the first 3 locations I'm working with, they're all orphanages for kids with disabilities. And again, we'll be taking OT, PT, and speech on a volunteer basis and hope to grow from there. I don't know if you could take a picture of like this or...
illness or injury, and this often occurs during working age. For those affected, spinal cord injury involves a shift in everyday life. Informed about photo voice. During this session, the group also decided on ground rules for the group and discussed ethics for the project. And after this, the members of the group took pictures during the week related to a subject that the group had decided, but it was of course linked to the aim of the study. Each session started with review of discussion from previous week, show and tell of pictures, and also discussion of the next week's subject. An analysis of this was twofold. We did visual analysis together with the participants of the project and members of the group, but we also did a However, support for work was fragmented, and there was a lack of knowledge about what it meant to live and work after spinal cord injury. And to find successful and sustainable paths to work, the participants saw a need to map out on paths to work. So this alerts us on the risk for persons to be excluded from labor market after injury, depending on the prerequisites the person had to find own solutions for work after injury. So this study is one example of how to use photo voice to generate knowledge and collaboration with persons living with disability to improve healthcare interventions. 2 members of this study collaborated with us further in modeling the intervention, and one of them is currently a role model when testing the intervention. The findings show a need to design
program that we call Cognitive Accessibility and Technology Use when Aging in Home and Society. The short form is CACTUS. And this is hosted at Karolinska Institutet in Stockholm, Sweden. This research program started out probably 20 years ago by Professor Louise Nygård, and she was working with people with dementia. And we continue to work with people with mild stage dementia and also people with mild cognitive impairments. But over the years we have included other groups as well, like people with acquired brain injuries, people with intellectual disabilities, also people with COPD, and people with developmental disabilities. As everyday technology plays a role in all of our lives, and also especially when we think about
tablet applications affect the handwriting, fine motor, and visual motor skills of our neurotypical kindergartners. My students, who are now newly graduated Masters of Science and Occupational Therapists, will discuss the research design procedures, instruments, as well as the analysis, research, and discussion.
Statistical significance with the alpha level set at 0.05, making it difficult to rule out typical development. While there was no statistical significance found in the study, there was clinical significance that we identified, particularly in the test of handwriting skills assessment. When looking at the overall standard score, 100% of the students in the experimental group increased in comparison to the control group, which only increased by 80%. The average increase of percentile in the experimental group was 23%, and the average increase for the control group was 9%. This shows that all the students in the experimental group had improvements in their handwriting skills and were ranked 14% better than their counterparts who did not receive any intervention.
Research experiment, we performed a literature review that revealed limited data supporting the use of touchscreen tablet applications to improve fine motor, visual motor, and handwriting skills in neurotypical kindergartners. Once our data was collected and analyzed, we found it not to be statistically significant. However, we did find clinical significance